this episode, History and Secrets of Charyn Gorges. Man has long considered himself the apex of creation, conquering new heights of knowledge, creating incredible technology and revealing the secrets of the universe. But sometimes we can find ourselves in places that make us feel like a tiny grain of sand on the open spaces of the planet. A helpless creature whose fate is dominated by the elements. Canyons, creations of water and wind, they fascinate us with incredible beauty and, at the same time, scare with their power and mystery. No wonder that in the past people believed that canyons were the territory of spirits, witches, and other mystical creatures. Alternative historians believe that these unusual landscapes are traces of the ancient workings of alien gas, and traditional scholars read the history of the planet along the canyon walls. Charyn legends, true or fiction? There is a lot of legends, tales, and interesting stuff about it. What are the dangers of a canyon? Rafters love and fear the river Charyn. Because the river Charyn, especially the stage from the bridge to the Valley of the Castles, it regularly takes people's lives. Charyn Canyon, chronicle of life on the planet. The deeper the canyon, the more distant time it can show. Tell about the events that happened there. Why is one of the most beautiful places in the canyon called Valley of Castles? What were the lands of Kazakhstan millions of years ago, and are there real evidences of the presence of supernatural forces among these stone sculptures? Watch all this right now. Times people endowed canyons with mystical properties. They frightened and attracted people. What is their secret? My name is Andrei Slozhin. It is the Time Puzzle, and today I'm going to the Charyn Canyon. Charyn Canyon is one of the most beautiful and visited places in Kazakhstan. Landscapes that tourists see are simply amazing. Hundreds of people come here every day to wander through the mysterious labyrinths among the rocks, admire the magnificent views, and take some memorable photos. As a rule, the guides bring people to the place that is called the Valley of the Castles. And many visitors do not even realize that this is just a small corner in the vast space of Charyn. One of the main attractions of the Charyn Canyon is the Valley of Castles. It attracts the most of the tourists. The length of the Charyn Canyon is 154 kilometers, and the length of the Castle Valley is about 2 kilometers. The Charyn Canyon is located near the border with China and Kyrgyzstan, 200 kilometers from the city of Almaty. By the standards of the modern pace, it can be reached fairly quickly, about 2.5 hours. Now, having overcome 200 kilometers and a pass, a person finds himself in another world. Pavel Novoselov is a traveler with great experience, and the Charyn Canyon is one of his favorite places. For several years, Pavel has studied the canyon well and discovered completely different places where tourists hardly ever get. Water tourism is my main hobby that I enjoy in my free time. During warm season, from April to October-November, I prefer to leave the city. And since Charyn is one of the most convenient locations, which is located near the city, most often I come to Charyn. But I'm not interested in going to popular places where crowds of tourists come. So I'm exploring the little-known right bank. Like any other canyon in the world, Charyn is also covered with mysteries and riddles. These stories are passed from mouth to mouth over the years.
О нем очень много сложено легенд, очень много сказаний.
There is a lot of legends, tales and interesting stuff about it. Probably since ancient times, people were afraid of such places, caves, rocks, different places that are incomprehensible to them. And of course, sometimes people disappeared in this canyon. There are incredible speculations that the disappearances of people are connected with the mystical properties of the canyon. Supposedly, there are portals to other worlds and parallel dimensions. But this is not the only story that is told about Charyn. One of the frightening legends is about witches who live in the labyrinths of Charyn. They say that you can hear their laughter. They also say that they lure travelers. After dark, they lure travelers to the rocks, to the stones, and throw them down. And in the gorge, you can hear the laughter of the witches.
Я слышал эту легенду про ведьмин каньон. В долине замков, когда идет...
I heard this legend about a witch canyon. In the valley of the castles, when going down to the river, the canyon respectively deepens constantly. And at that section, when the sedimentary rocks are changing to the basalt mountains, and this transition from the multicolored red and gray sedimentary rocks to black ones, for some reason people called the witch place. And the canyon begins to meander there. I heard that if you go there at night, you can disappear. Wandering among the rocks of the canyon that go up, one involuntarily experiences some discomfort. The stone walls, as if silently watching you, unexpected turns of the trail frightened by hidden uncertainty. And sometimes you can hear strange sounds that resemble woman laughter. In fact, the scientific explanation is quite plain. The canyon is like a natural musical instrument. And the wind, when it passes through the gorge, creates such music. The sound is like the laughter of a witch. Perhaps indeed it is just a rumble of wind or a distant noise of a river flowing here, which is turned into laughter witches by our imagination. But who knows what may actually be hiding in narrow crevices among huge rocks that are older than time itself. Coming up next, how Charyn Canyon appeared. The canyon was formed several million years ago. This is a long process of environmental exposure to deposits of various sedimentary rocks. Also, a considerable contribution to the creation of such bizarre forms was made by water, the Charyn River, after which the canyon was named. The rise of the river Charyn originates in the mountains of Ketmen and Terek Alatau, and downstream the Charyn Canyon is located. And then the Charyn River flows into River Ili. The length of the Charyn River is 427 kilometers, and one of the parts of the river is the Charyn Canyon itself. The Charyn River, one of the 85,000 rivers of Kazakhstan, flows down from the mountain slopes through the desert and flows into the Ili River. In ancient Turkic language, its name means stormy, full-flowing and powerful, which very accurately describes its temper. Rafters love and fear the Charyn River, because the river Charyn, especially the stage from the bridge to the valley of the castles, it regularly takes people's lives. As rafters claim, the Charyn River is not like other rivers of Semirechye. It is always different. Now it is calm and simple, but after a second the boat with the athletes begins to hurl like an autumn leaf. Many fans of rafting wanted to conquer it, but Charyn does not like the proud ones. Upstream there are places where there are monuments to the dead rafters. And at the time of the flood, if you descend from Zabea Canyon to the river itself, there is a so-called moon meadow. When you are standing there, it feels like the earth itself trembles beneath you. A huge shaft of water, huge rapids. And to be honest, when I look at all this, I don't want to be in the water. Most people believe that the canyon was formed thanks to this turbulent river, that over the course of millions of years, it gradually washed out sedimentary rocks. However, this is not entirely true. To understand the history of the canyon, you need to ask a specialist. Therefore, we ask the opinion of the eminent geologist, corresponding member of the Academy of Mineral Resources of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Ilya Leonidovich Fishman.
Породы, в которых прорезан Чарынский каньон.
Rocks in which the Charyn Canyon is cut, they are ancient. They appeared in Neogene, about 20, maybe 30 million years ago.
Но сам каньон
But the canyon itself was cut relatively recently, just 1 million years ago or 500,000 years ago. More than 400 million years ago, this whole area was covered with water. It was an ocean. Later, the water level fell and islands appeared. By the way, the climate was tropical back then.
Когда мы говорим о том, что где-то было море,
when we say that there was a sea somewhere and the climate was hot, then it is necessary to imagine some more or less limited part of the terrain. In Kazakhstan, starting from the Paleogene, the whole territory was leveled. It was like such a huge plain that geologists call peneplain. All that we can observe here, it was all under a huge layer of water, while here was Paleotethys, the ancient Tethys Sea. Then, at the beginning of active terraforming, on the territory of Kazakhstan, the land began to rise and the water was leaving. The current Caspian and Balkaj are the great-great-grandchildren of the ancient sea, which stayed in our territory. And all that we can observe, these bizarre forms, the bottom silt or the so-called sedimentary rocks. This is the famous Valley of Castles. As a rule, tourists are brought from that side. I am on the opposite bank of the Charyn River. Valley of Castles, this name was given by Kazakhstan traveler Pavel Marikovsky when he first described this place. The official name is Kizilsai, which means Red Ravine. Pavel Marikovsky was a professor of zoology, a well-known writer, naturalist, entomologist, and doctor of biological sciences, as well as a member of the Writers' Union of Kazakhstan. He was born July the 28th, 1912 in the Amur region of the Russian Empire. After the end of the Second World War, the scientist moved to live and work in Kazakhstan. A curious fact is that a serious scientist tried to prove the existence of a Yeti for almost his entire life. Once he said, "I found a lot of his tracks in the Baktau-Ata area in Balkaj region." Then, by the way, one local scientist wrote an indignant letter to me. "I walked those places through and through, but I didn't find a single trace of a snowman. But I saw this creature there. One evening, he was resting on a mountain, apparently falling asleep. I watched him for a long time, then the Yeti got up and left. I also noticed that it has a dog-like habit." Later, Marikovsky wrote a book dedicated to the snowman, The Tragedy of a Wild Man, in which he mentioned the Charyn Canyon as one of the potential habitats of Yeti. However, the scientists weren't able to uncover the mystery and prove the existence of the giant to the entire scientific world. Marikovsky died on November 10th, 2008. However, his description of Charyn and the term Valley of Castles are left in history as the name of one of the most popular places in this canyon.
Каньон Kizilsai, долина замков, самый популярный.
Kizilsai Canyon, the Valley of Castles, is the most popular, the most common and most visited of the canyons. It is composed of red rock. This is the middle and most ancient part of sedimentary rocks. If you look closely at the walls of the canyon, you can see that it changes, not only in color, but also in its composition, density. Seems like you can split it just with your hands. Of course you can't. Everything is very tightly cemented there. As it's not for the other canyon, which by the way is located near the valley of Castles on the right bank of the Charyn River. The traveler who came here for the first time feels like he's on another planet. Local landscapes can rightly be called Martian or lunar. As the Charyn River passes here, which always washed out the sedimentary rocks, we can observe a section from the surface to the very bottom. And each layer has its own color. The lower, the more ancient. The Moon Canyon is the very top. There is a very interesting location of the mountains, which is closed from the wind and rain. Therefore, there the upper light rocks are still preserved. They are very loose. That's why in the area of the Valley of Castles, Bestamak and Temirlik, those upper layers are blown away. Uzunbulak Valley, Lunar Canyon, Ute Valley, Yellow Canyon. It has many names. This natural formation is located on the south side of the Katu Mountains. It got its name precisely because of its appearance. Someone says that these mounds resemble yurts. There are those who claim that this is a lunar landscape. It is curious, but it was here that the site of primitive men and stone tools were found. And Jurassic fossils are found in the exposed rocks.
Сам каньон, конечно, очень неудобен для жизни. Вместе с тем, древнее население Казахстана, конечно...
The canyon itself, of course, is very inconvenient for life. At the same time, the ancient population of Kazakhstan, of course, could not leave this canyon unnoticed. And it remained in some legends and tales. But this question is still investigated very poorly. But the only thing in which we agree with our distant ancestors is that these are very beautiful landscapes. These are unusual structures, and they always attracted both ancient people and modern ones. Coming up next, the legends of red wolves of Charyn. At first glance, these rocks seem lifeless, but if you look closely, you can see the trails of mountain goats and diebacks. In general, more than 30 species of animals live in the Charyn Canyon, nearly 100 species of birds and almost 1,000 species of plants. Most of these animals, birds and plants are listed in the Red Book of Kazakhstan, and the canyon itself is included in the Charyn State National Natural Park. It is inhabited by living creatures. Local fauna is quite interesting. Siberian ibex, the so-called mountain goat, I have repeatedly met it here. There are really a lot of them. Also manuls, kakliks, hares, foxes and a lot of birds of prey inhabit these places. Unfortunately, we haven't met any of them today, but they usually fly here and look at us with a sidelong glance. Now there are no serious and large enough predators that would hunt ungulates. However, quite recently, by historical standards, a predator looking like a wolf, a fox and a jackal at the same time lived and hunted here. Now it became extinct in the wild nature of Kazakhstan and in other CIS countries. The red wolf is on the verge of extinction. For 40 years, there has not been a single case of meeting this animal in its natural environment. And once upon a time, this predator dominated Charyn, hunting in a very tricky way. And there is a legend about it. Allegedly, red wolves were driving their prey to the edge of the abyss. From there, they dropped it down. The victim fell. And they went down and could start eating. This legend has a real meaning under it, since this area indeed was inhabited with red wolves. They were very strong, much stronger than their grey counterparts. And one such wolf can even take under patronage a whole pack of ordinary grey wolves. These red wolves disappeared long time ago. The last wolf was seen in the 40s of the last century. But some people claim that they saw it. Well, maybe they still live somewhere in the canyon. Traveling along the Charyn Canyon, we met several abandoned buildings. Pavel Novoselov said that these were the winterings of shepherds, which are now empty and collapsed. But it was the shepherds who left behind the roads that helped Pavel find new places in the canyon.
Дорога, которая здесь была проложена изначально для чабанов, она начала зарастать. Когда мы впервые начали...
The road, which was here originally for the shepherds, began to overgrow. When we first began to look for new places and views on the Charyn, we moved on barely noticeable tracks, and they reached wintering grounds. Later we became interested, since we always had a map. We were trying to find out where those tracks can lead us. Then we began driving to those places, and there is one place that was discovered by me and my friends. One of the places discovered by Pavel is the so-called stone shelf. The view that opens from it is amazing and breathtaking. But despite all the attractiveness, this is a very dangerous place, because one wrong step and you can fall down to the abyss. Perhaps that is why Pavel does not bring anyone here except for close, trusted people who know how to behave in such places. In general, the Charyn Canyon is a rather dangerous place. In the canyon there are a lot of clefts, a lot of rocks, a lot of labyrinths. And they say that people can get lost there and simply fall off a cliff into a river. A very rapid flow of the river would carry them away. And there are a lot of whirlpools in the river. A lot of obscure flows, dangerous rifts. The river is quite stormy, even now in our time, when there are tons of different devices for descending along mountain rivers. There on that part of the river Charyn, rafting is prohibited at all. It is very life-threatening. So in 2010, a British citizen, Penshila Rain, fell from a cliff during a walk and fell into the Charyn River. All Kazakhstani media blew the trumpets. However, there is no information where emergency group managed to find her. There is another story that also happened here. Also, people went missing. In 2011, a group of 4 young people, when they were called up for military service, decided to evade military service and get lost in this canyon. And they were lost. They have not yet been found. The film crew met a tourist from Germany in the Charyn Canyon. We told him the most popular legends about this place, and that's what Andreas Ruby told us.
I could imagine that one can lose one's mind in this landscape, because it's so large and you feel yourself so unimportant, and the landscape has an extreme power over you. So I can imagine if you spend a long time, you can get scared. But it's this type of scare that is also a kind of beauty. In the 18th century, they invented a term for it, which was the sublime. And that's a kind of beauty of something that is larger than anything you can imagine, and that makes you feel humble and realize how small you really are.
Many foreign tourists come here as the glory of the Charyn Canyon spreads far beyond the Republic. Travelers call it the younger brother of the Grand Canyon.
известному специалисту и фотографу Колокольникову приходилось...
My colleague, a well-known specialist and photographer Kolokolnikov, and I had to accompany the American photographer from the National Geographic magazine to the canyon.
Он приехал.
When this man, who had traveled all over the world, arrived in the place, he immediately put on his tripod and did not leave the place until it was completely dark. He was accompanied by his wife and daughter. They too were delighted with the Charyn Canyon. And so I asked them, "Please tell me, you also have the famous Grand Canyon in Colorado." They told me, "This is completely different. They are absolutely different things. These are completely different things." Grand Canyon is very big. It is very deep. All geologists are interested in canyons because they reveal the history of ancient sediments. The deeper the canyon, the more distant time it can show. It can tell about the events that happened there.
Историю древних отложений. Чем глубже каньон, тем более далекое время он может показать и рассказать о тех событиях, которые были там.
Как говорят путешественники, если ты...
As travelers say, if you want to enjoy all canyon landscapes, you'd better walk. Our cameraman and I, we followed this advice. We sent the cars forward and we walked and watched these beautiful landscapes. This part of the Charyn Canyon is called the Bestama Gorge, which in Kazakh means 5 dishes. I wonder where this name came from. One of the assumptions suggests that there are 5 kinds of rock concentrated here. There is a version that the color scheme of the canyon consists of 5 primary colors that somehow resemble the colors of the national dishes of the Kazakhs. Also, it is often called the 5 necks. The most beautiful canyon, in my personal opinion, is the Bestama Canyon. Because in the Bestama Canyon, there are all types of rocks that we can observe on the Charyn. Different colors and shapes of stone walls and boulders fascinate with beauty and grandeur. Many researchers suggest that this is all the creation of ancient volcanoes.
Может быть и вулканическое происхождение, и осадочное.
They may have volcanic or sedimentary origin. Charyn structures, they consist of 2 floors. The first floor is the base of all these striped strata. It is very ancient, about 300 million years. It has a volcanic origin. It was in the carbon. Then there were lots of volcanic explosions, clouds of ash were thrown, huge volcanic bombs rolled over the ground. And all this is clearly visible just at the base of the general structure of the canyon.
В основании общей структуры каньона.
However, there is an alternative version of the origin of canyons. Many researchers believe that this is the remnants of ancient quarries for the extraction of minerals. They think that there was a more developed race or even representatives of extraterrestrial civilizations who quarried here. However, geologists disprove this version.
Однозначно нет, потому что самые большие карьеры.
Definitely not. Because the biggest quarries, there are huge quarries in Kazakhstan. Sokolovsky, Sabai, these are giant hollows that are interesting even in their depth. They cannot be compared with nature. Nature creates much deeper pits. And as geologists say, elements of the relief, which can look like mountains or like large dips. In addition, a research was conducted on the availability of valuable minerals. According to geologists, in the canyon there is nothing that could be valuable for the industrial extraction of resources.
В самом каньоне нет ничего, наверное, по счастью.
There is nothing in the canyon itself, probably by luck, because otherwise this beauty would be quickly destroyed. In the vicinity of the canyon there are deposits of rare metals and other minerals, but they are fortunately 5 to 10 kilometers away from the canyon. Boguty Mountains and some others.
Километровом удалении от каньона это и месторождение Богуты и некоторые другие.
Nevertheless, alternative historians believe that the resource extraction is still a good version and that this happened a long time ago. And since then, the quarry, under the influence of natural conditions, has acquired the appearance of a canyon of natural origin. They also assume that those bizarre forms of stones or rock structures are nothing but polygonal masonry. The official science doubts this version and says that with a detailed study of canyons on the planet, we can learn the history of our land almost from its inception.
Многие альтернативные исследователи утверждают, что
Many alternative researchers argue that this is a polygonal clutch. In fact, such unusual shapes were formed many millions of years ago. Previously, the river of the same name flowed along the gorge Bastamak. Now only spring floods continue to flow through the canyon. As in the Valley of the Castles, the road to the Bastamak Gorge abuts against the Charyn River. Now it is transparent, but before the construction of the Bestubinsk Reservoir and the Moynak Hydroelectric Station, the water in the river was muddy. Famous explorers of Semirechye and Tian Shan Mountains, Chokan Velikanov and Peter Semyonov Tenshansky wrote about this in their notes. Chokan Velikanov is one of the first researchers of the Charyn Canyon. In 1856, he was crossing the river Kakara, a little above the canyon, when he went to Kashgaria, that is, to China. Then there was Peter Petrovich Semyonov Tenshansky and other researchers. The climate of these places is amazing. Despite the fact that the canyon is located relatively close to the mountains, snowy winters are very rare here. The climate is quite peculiar. It is very different from the weather that we have in Almaty. Almaty is one air basin which is limited to Zailiyski Alatau, Saritau mountains. Then when crossing the mountains through the Kokpak Pass, we get into the second air basin, also closed valley, where there may be a completely different weather. And moving to the right bank of the Charyn River, on the right bank, you find yourself in the third zone. We often go to the Charyn Canyon in winter, and in Almaty can be minus 15 and a half meters of snow. But here it doesn't snow in winter at all, and during the day the temperature is above zero. The lowest at night is minus 7. In the off-season, Charyn is famous for its strong winds. There are winds up to 20-25 meters per second. This is the wind that blows people away. Considering that if you come up from the top of the canyon, the wind always pulls out from the bottom. It practically blows a person aside. As for the mystics, it is a favorite method of tour operators. It has long been noticed that tourists more often come to places which have some mystery, legends and history.
Очень много легенд, так как каньон пытаются мистифицировать, ну и в принципе эту местность.
There is a lot of legends about the canyon and its vicinity, because mysticism brings money. However, research was conducted here. Archaeologists came here, and all that they could find here were animal bones. Because the wolves who were actively hunting here before, they followed mountain goats to the edge of a cliff. Animals fell down, and then the wolves went down and simply ate what was left. Witches, ghosts, woman laughter, well, for better or worse, there is none of all this. And do not believe it, if someone will tell you.
как и ожидалось, мистики здесь.
As expected, I have not found any mystics here. But it became clear to me why this place is shrouded in so many secrets and legends. People who come here, they find another world, a special energy, a special atmosphere. Come and see it for yourself. My name is Andrei Slozhin. Was a time puzzle. See you.